and welcome back. Today's guest is Carrie Lomax, author of The Duke's Stolen Heart. Carrie writes steamy contemporary and historical romance. She was a finalist in the 2018 Virginia Fool for Love contest for her historical romance, To Win a Wicked Widow. Her historical books have hit the #1 Amazon best-selling spot in Regency romance and historical romance several times. An anthology produced by the Haute Ton Reader Society was a 2021 top 3 Rone Awards finalist. After a stint teaching English in France, she moved to New York City for 15 years, where she acquired a pair of graduate degrees, a husband, and a career as a librarian. Carrie currently lives in Maryland with 2 budding readers and her real-life romantic hero. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Lomax. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for joining me on A Writer's Perspective. Really excited to have you here with us today.
Hi, Lena. Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So tell me, when did you start writing? When did you realize it's in me and I got to do it?
I was a kid. I mean, this has just been something that I did. I grew up in the country, like pretty rural.
Wow.
And so there was not a lot to do. I grew up in rural Wisconsin. And so Wisconsin, if you know anything about it, is very football oriented. So the rest of the family would go watch football and I would go in my room and I would read or I would write or whatever. And
Awesome.
then later when we moved to the city again, then I had, access to better libraries and my world really expanded in terms of what I could write. So.
Okay. So when did you, at what point in your life did you realize, I have a book idea and I want to write it, and you wrote it? And then, how old were you when you did that and looked for publishing prospects?
So I was like 11 or 12.
Ambitious.
Yeah, I know. This is like one of those, I'm probably turning red.
No.
This is one of those stories. So I had a friend in middle school and we, so maybe 6th or 7th grade, I guess. I don't know. My daughter's 11 and she's in 5th grade. So maybe I was a little older, but she had this idea that we should, write a book together and send it off to New York. So we had this handwritten, 13-page notebook paper that we sent off to some publisher in New York, probably HarperCollins. And they actually sent it back to us. And it was with a very nice note, handwritten, this is very encouraging, keep writing. We can't, acquire it at this time. We were thrilled to get that letter.
Oh, that's so cute. That is a wonderful story.
Yeah, I don't know if that happens anymore.
No, that was kind of cute story. So fast forward now, how old were you then when you really wrote that first draft?
So I was in college, my senior year of college. And I had picked up romance. So I had read it off and on in high school and was writing, this was the 90s. So it was before we had things like, places to find online with fanfic. I mean, I'm sure if I knew where to look, I could have found some, but I did not have a community. So I was writing the equivalent of fanfic back in the day in high school.
Right.
And then, so I got to college and I picked up romance and I just launched into it. I'm a literature major. So this was like how I broke up the more serious books that I was reading because, when everybody ends up dead all the time, you want someone who maybe doesn't end up dead at the end of the book.
Right, exactly.
So, we had to do a senior individualized project. And so I decided I was going to write my first romance novel.
Wow.
And so I did. And my Shakespeare professor was a little taken aback and he let me get away with it. And,
not what he expected, I'm pretty sure.
No, she didn't. She was a wonderful professor. And I actually later went on and got a master's degree in literature with a specialty in Shakespeare.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so, so you wrote in college your first draft. What happened to it? Did you throw it under the bed? Usually I hear from authors, their first draft, they either threw it under the bed, they put it in a drawer, they shredded it. What happened to that?
I was much more ambitious. I kept working on it for about 3 or 4 years. And then I submitted it to the Golden Heart and I got disqualified for having the page numbers in the wrong place.
Well, you gotta be kidding
I was very,
me.
very disappointed. And I basically said, and I had checked. I swear I had checked, but I got it wrong. So
Right.
read the directions or something like that. And I was like, well, if that's really as far as it's gonna go, like, then I guess I'm done. And so then I went into a drawer, and it's probably for the best. I'm very sorry, everyone who had to read that first draft.
So you stopped after that? You got discouraged?
Yep.
Wow.
Went to
Okay.
library school, was like, I'm not going to be a writer. I'm going to, I've got to find something else that's book adjacent to do with my life. So I got my library degree.
Okay. And then you did that.
Yep.
And then at what point did you say, hey, I'm going to try again?
So I got involved with Lady Jane Salon. I met
Hope.
Yes, Hope. She's lovely.
Yeah. That's how I started with well, I did the Lady Jane Salon in Silver Spring.
Yeah, that was before I moved to the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you met her, and you got involved with her because you were in New York. And that's where one of them is based, or the original, I believe, is in New York, right?
That's right.
And so then you got encouraged to pursue again, to start all over again?
Well, sort of. I mean, so I hung around for a while and felt very shy and didn't feel like I could do it. But, I'd never really stopped writing and was never that good about not writing. Like, it kind of just needs to happen for me.
Right.
And so eventually I started buckling down and trying again. And I still have a lot of, false start manuscripts. I call it the graveyard on my Google.
I like that one. The graveyard. That's an awesome.
Ideas get scribbled and sent away.
Oh, that's awesome. The graveyard. I really like that. So let's talk about your first real draft that got sent and got accepted. Which one was that?
It was The Wild Lord.
Okay.
So it's my first historical. And so I spent a few years polishing it. It took me a long time to write it because it was right around the time I had my first child. So there was just a lot of turmoil. I had severe PPD and everything. So,
right.
But I did eventually finish it and, got feedback and worked on it. And I sent it out, and I went into contract with a small press, and I was absolutely thrilled. That was 2016, I think.
Okay.
So,
okay.
It took about 5 years to finish that one.
Wow, that's great. So the next question is, how do you balance the family life with, with your writing passion? Because it is a passion. It's in you. It's been in you since you were 11 or younger. So how do you balance at the time? How did you balance that?
Not well. I've never balanced anything well. I'm very prone to just letting the house fall apart. So I'm very lucky that my husband, he definitly does his fair share, if not more, of the childcare and the house cleaning and things like that.
Okay, it helps.
So
that was going to be my next one, because a lot of us, we do have full-time jobs, and I don't have children, I didn't marry, but my issue is I'm on the computer 8-9 hours a day, and the last thing I want to do when I get off the computer is get back on the computer.
Yeah.
But because it is your passion, it is something that you want to do when you have goals, you have to bite the bullet and get back on the computer.
Yeah.
So when is your best time to write? Is it in the morning when the kids are in school? Because you have young ones still, right? Young ones.
In elementary school. So.
Yeah. That's crazy. Because I mean, in a good sense, because you have to be mom, and you have to be wife, you have to be house, you have to be an employee and an author. So there's a lot of jiggling, that is involved with that. So so when are you able to really sit down and do some writing? At night, during the day?
Yeah, so I have pretty bad insomnia, so I often stay up at night or wake up early in the morning. It's fairly hit or miss.
Right.
It just kind of depends on what else is going on in my life, whether I'm able to sleep or not. But sometimes it's at 2 a.m. if I just happen to wake up and be awake for an hour or two.
Wow. That's crazy, but it is what it is. It's the life of an author, you know. If you can change one thing in your writing career, writing life, what would it be?
Change one thing. Well, I mean, I basically, since the pandemic started, I haven't had a new book out in a couple of years because I have just been completely blocked and trying to work on this mega huge series. So I would like to get rid of that creative writer block.
Okay, which happens a lot. Happens a lot. I'm a pantser. And
Pantser.
so pantsers, I think, suffer more from writer's block, I think, than plotters. Is it plotters? Yeah, because I mean, you know, as a plotter, you have an idea where you're going, what you want to do. But because I'm a pantser, it's really hard. Though I'm trying to get better about it, you know, as far as doing that. Let's see. What is one lesson that you learned in your writing career that you wish you had known early on?
Oh, keep it cheap. I'm in self-published now because I fell out of contract with that first book. And I've been self-published ever since. And the more money, and I don't mean cheap out on editing and things like that. I mean, like, know what to spend your money on. And that's very hard to do when you are first starting out in self-pub, because everybody's like, well, buy this product and do this thing and
Right.
money on these things. And it's hard to know for you what's going to have the most impact. So it is very easy to throw money at things.
That's
and
correct.
I did that, and it, you know, I mean, and it was bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we all do that. Yeah, but just last couple of months, I spent a couple of, amount of money on BookBrush, which is an app that will help you create marketing stuff for your, for your books. You can do book trailers, you can create ads. It was a little bit expensive, but it's amazing app. And I've been able to do a lot of stuff for a writer's perspective. I also joined Canva, and then I got rid of Canva. Then I paid for Epidemic Sound because I was having issues with through Canva. I created the the intro for my YouTube videos. And I also got the music from them as well. And I paid for all that. But when I uploaded the videos on YouTube, Epidemic would say, no, you don't have the rights to this song. And so it was a lot of going back and forth with YouTube. So finally I bought, my membership with Epidemic, and now I don't have a problem with that, so I can use all kinds of music for anything. So I've had that problem too, where in the beginning you struggle with what to get, and you hear people's perspective on this, on that, this program. I did Grammarly, and Grammarly, I thought, screwed up my whole draft, So I had to reread the book and then fix all the stuff. So I'm kind of scared of those kinds of programs. I don't know, and as far as editors, if you self-publish, it's expensive, to get an editor. So I rely on beta readers. I rely on reading the book myself over and over and over again. But even after a while, you're blinded, by the typos or whatever, So it's a struggle, and people think that, you publish a book or you publish 2, 3, you're rich. No.
I'm sorry.
But no, it doesn't work that way. You have to really love what you're doing, and the other thing that took me a while to realize is you have these stories in your head, and it's like it's driving you insane unless you type it up and you put it on paper and you build this world, with these characters and their struggles and their eventual success and happily ever afters. And it's not easy, and you're not rich, you're not over, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not Nora Roberts, you're not Stephen King, it's just, And, it's really sad because in a lot of these, we lost not Barnes, Borders, we lost these other bookstores. And so these publishing companies, if you're not a name, they don't want you. They won't even they won't, I knew someone who writes these great mystery paranormal stories, got selected, contracted with, I think the company is now defunct, Berkeley, I think Berkeley.
Oh.
And the first year they made $50,000 in book sales.
Yeah.
Guess what? Berkeley dropped her.
Oh my gosh. That's the scary thing about trad, right?
Yeah. So Berkeley dropped her because she didn't make enough. To them, that was not enough. Mm-hmm. And so, so, then you go into, what do you do? Do you self-publish? Do you continue to get rejection notices? Do you continue to just wait? And so a lot of people, when the self-publishing thing came out, it had a really bad taboo to it, mainly because these mortar bookstore publishing companies were like saying, that's not gonna take off. That's not gonna take off. Well, guess what? It took off.
Yeah.
And I remember that. So you are self-published now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. What do you like about it?
I like the freedom to fail. I fail frequently and I fail often, and I fail on my own time and my own dime. So,
yeah, right. Exactly.
The risk is all mine. And mostly it's just been risk.
Yeah, exactly. And you do have you do have an editor.
Oh yeah. I've got actually several editors that I work with. Again, I haven't been in touch with any of them lately because I haven't been publishing anything in a while. It's just been a rough couple of years for everybody.
Yes, it has. It has, definitely. So let's jump into, do you have a relationship with your readers? Have you heard from readers about your books?
I mean, I have a fairly active newsletter list, that people are, and I just recently I've been trying to reinvigorate my backlist a little bit. So I just wrote a new epilogue and I've gotten some good feedback from readers on that.
Awesome.
They really enjoy it. So that's been great. I tried to get a Facebook group going and it didn't really take off for me, but I'm very lucky to be part of this other group of 7 historical romance authors called the Haute Tone Reader Society.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we've got it's a small active group. I think it's about 300 or 400 people now. But and we just each day post one day. I'm on Tuesdays. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
I'll check it out.
That's really where I interact. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Nice group, very relaxed. So.
Awesome. Yeah, because I've been, posting on a lot of groups, my videos, to market them and to get readers hopefully to come and look at and discover new authors or, visit their favorite author and what life is, like for them and stuff like that. So that's good to know. Do you stay connected with other authors? Do you keep abreast of the, what's going on in the publishing industry?
I mean, I try to. There is so much happening
that
it's very, it's hard to stay on top of it. But I follow it as much as I can. I have authors that I am in contact with, at least weekly.
Right.
And some daily. So some
are you a member of the Maryland Romance Writers chapter?
I was, and then when everything went virtual, I let it lapse. Everything.
Right.
And so, I'm a member of the Regency Academy because I'm focused on historical romance with this pen name.
Right.
So I'm a member of that group. And apart from that, I'm not a member of any other organizations right now. Right.
Were you required at one point to be a member of the Romance Writers of America?
Yeah, you are in order to be part of MRWA.
So. Right. So are you still a member of theirs?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, they got a little bit expensive. So I heard that a lot of the chapters, in a lot of the states are kind of like moving away from that and allowing people to join their chapters, so that they, in other words, they don't have to, because you have to be a member of RWA
Yep.
before you can be a member of the local chapters. And I thought, when I first started out, I thought that's really a shame, because there's really I didn't think there was that much of a connection or overlapping where they could help each other. But I was a member of WRW for a long time. And then I dropped out, not because of anything. Well, I kind of felt they weren't doing some of the things that I would have liked to have seen them do, to help newbie writers, that kind of made me drop off. And then I started hearing stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm glad. But now I would like to go back to joining them, but I don't want to pay RWA, fees. So there's a possibility they might move away from RWA. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that on this, but hey, it is what it is.
A lot of chapters are discussing it, from what I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, I'm not up on most of that discussion, but I think the RWA and the local chapters are really great, especially in the beginning of your career. It is expensive. I understand that.
Yeah.
It's not readily affordable to a lot of people.
Right.
But yeah, I was a member for several years when I was getting started in self-publishing, and it was just like the information was just incredible.
I think so too. And the other authors that they would have come over and do lectures and workshops, fantastic. For newbie writers, is a fantastic outlet. I think the local chapter cost is not that bad. $45, $30 for a year. That is awesome. It was the RWA, I think, that got to almost $200 or $100. That was just too much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They do disassociate themselves from RWA only because of the payment requirement. Not anything RWA did, but I would definitely go back to WRW. They were a fantastic, group of women. And they supported each other. I just wanted to see more involvement with an established author helping mentoring one. It was something that I would have liked to have seen, and I did put in, that kind of comment to help a newbie author, get established a little bit. But things change as always. Have you joined any other writing organizations?
I did join Women's Fiction Writing Association last year, and then I promptly forgot about it.
Well,
so
yeah.
I just sort of forgot about it because they're active on Facebook, and again, I'm only on Facebook literally just like once a week for the most part.
Right.
So I just sort of didn't get much out of it and didn't
renew
it.
Yeah, and that's normal. Again, because from a writer's perspective, you have another life, you have other things. So those things are normal. They happen. Stuff happens, So let's talk about your one book, the one book I read. I try to read a book for each author that I talk to. So I read The Duke's Stolen Heart.
Oh.
And what I've been loving about doing this YouTube channel is that these books that I'm reading are taking me away from my comfort zone and are teaching me something, I could talk about Heather Hayford's book, First Comes Love, and what it taught me. But your book also kind of reminded me of what Heather's book taught me. So we're going to talk about your book here. I am used to reading the pure heroine, the virgin, and the hero and the struggles, and then the happily ever after. And I love happily ever afters. So, with Heather's book, I learned a lot of things, and it was like, God, there's life at the pure virgin, pure heroines. And so, and what I love is the other thing that I'm learning is and I don't know, I'm a late learner. The reactions that these stories pull out of me, you know. So I don't want to give too much of the book away because I want readers to buy the book. I loved it. At first, I was angry with the heroine. Um, I um, I just thought, oh my gosh, she's rough around the edges, and then it just reminded me that life is not a bowl of cherries. You know, it's not, people do suffer, people do struggle, and so I kind of understood her struggles, and so eventually I started warming up to her and feeling bad for her, and hating her mother, and then then trying to understand what people struggle in those days, that 1815, 1817, the period, whatever, the Regency period. People did struggle. It wasn't always hunky-dory, and so it was rough to see her being a thief and dressing like a man, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. And then and it was interesting because I kind of felt there was a role reversal. Right? He had it all, basically, more or less, but he had his own pain, right? His parents struggle, and and then wanting that piece so that he can get his mother the piece of the heart, so that he can get a picture of his mother, and then his blackmailing her. And it was like, oh my God, this is totally like out there. But I loved it. And of course, I love that they stayed together at the end. And because I still do believe love conquers all. I think that if people really just focus on love, it would save us a lot of pain. I really do.
Not them necessarily, not those two.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, but they did. He made her his wife, and these are serious issues that they had, serious for her. It was a serious dysfunction, because for her to be so cold-blooded, and she had to stay cold-blooded. I mean, she robbed and she had to keep this persona and move on. So you really feel that. I mean, and I think that's the whole purpose of writing a story, whether it's a love story or historical, or it's that connection that the reader makes with the characters, and you feel it. You feel the pain. I had one person say to me, I hate Margaret. One of my books, my character, I hate Margaret. And somebody told me, oh, did you get upset? And I said, no, because Margaret is a pain in the neck. Margaret is, she's got issues, in the end, she changes. That's what character development, character art, she changes for the better, so it was okay for them to hate her in book one, because in book two and in book three, eventually, they'll love her. She just was a character that stood up for what she believed in against society, right? And this is what your heroine does, yeah. So and he too, at first he's like, really, I don't care, but you're doing this for me. And I'm like, oh my God, do I want to fall in love with someone like that? And then of course you realize, he's got his own issues, and he warms up to her and vice versa. Okay, so now the thing that shocked me was one of the sex, when they're having sex, and she pulls out this leather thing.
Yes. So I have a comment about that when you're done.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my. I said, Carrie really did her research, must have done her research. So I have to ask her about the research. So
yeah,
back to you on that one. So
you're talking about the condom, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I have since learned more research. So condoms were common. They were used. They were called French letters, and they were basically dried out intestines.
Oh,
And it came in little packages, or, tins, you could buy them. But the thing that I didn't know when I wrote that scene and have since learned is that you actually had to, you couldn't just pull them out and use them. You had to, they were tied on one end with a string, and, anyway, so that's where the word, I think that's actually where tie one on comes from, the expression. But apparently you had to actually soak them in water or some sort of like liquid for like 45 minutes before you could use them. So
oh,
I
wow.
would be using condoms in
That is
in
interesting.
historical, because apparently they were pretty gross to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
I thought it was well, I thought the
available.
research was well done. So, so my next question is, how much of research do you do for your books?
So I go down a lot of research holes. I go down a lot of rabbit holes. I still get things wrong. I think this is just kind of the nature of writing historical romance. And you kind of have to, at some point, agree that we're all just writing like a fantasy version of the Regency.
Right,
I mean, like
right,
a Bridgerton kind of style, like very glamorous, but it's not trying to, faithfully recreate the period.
right. I
And so,
agree.
I'm looking for the interesting characters and the unique characters. And one thing I really think is fascinating about, about that historical time period, I mean, there's many things, but, people could just disappear and create new identities for themselves, and did. There are many, many stories, from New York City in particular, which features in several of the books in that series, where people would just show up and make a new, and they would just lie and create a new for themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes for just no real reason at all. They just wanted to leave something behind in their past.
Right.
But that was very possible to do in the era before, computerized tracking systems and birth certificates.
Right. Yeah. No, I thought it was interesting. The whole thing was, like I said, I enjoyed it very much once I got, past my prejudice of her character. And I think,
I like the unlikable heroines. So
yeah, you do. Yeah. But the thing is, though, they change. They become likable. After I got over that, I was like, wow, she had a rough life, and this is what brought her to that. I mean, if you look at newspapers today and the news, is happening today,
Exactly.
and your thoughts go to, what made that person, what happened in that person's life to make them do something like that. And so she, eventually you do feel sorry for her. You understand what, as a reader, for me, I have to make that connection, to understand. Otherwise, the book means nothing to me, So when you start reading it and you don't like her, but then you're like, oh, what happened? What made her look that way? And I thought it was refreshing because, again, she didn't fit that typical pure, innocent, such a noble kind of character, right? And that's the same thing I with reading Heather's book. It's, it was like really, the heroine was very strong, very, imperfect, and so was the hero. But then, they come together, and then you understand. And that's where I think, for me as a reader, you grow.
Yeah.
You grow because you become aware of the issues that affect people and stuff like that. So I loved it. I enjoyed it very much. So let's see. How do you come up with ideas for your books? What who do you use?
I really wish I could like turn off the idea faucet sometimes, because I'm constantly chasing the shiny new idea. And I'll be halfway through a manuscript and I'll be like, but this other thing would be so much fun to write. And this is where the graveyard comes in. So I'll write it down and I'll get a few pages and then I'll stick it there until I'm done.
Yeah, I do that too. I have a book where I have ideas. I put my ideas in,
So yeah.
Yeah. So how hard is it for you to do world building?
So that's probably better something that you should probably tell me. Do I do it effectively? Because I don't know. I've been.
I thought it was fantastic. You did. Okay. Well, I mean, you had the whole structure. You had the grandmother. You had her gambling habits. You had the heroine's house, secret house. where she would go and have her little stash and felt safe temporarily. And then the Duke, I thought it was fantastic. With me, well, I started to do in one of my contemporary murder mysteries. I started with the killer, kills the prostitute. But he goes to pick up a prostitute, and he could smell on her that she's been with other men. And so somebody said, that's kind of gross. That's kind of like, it's not necessary, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I want to make it necessary because I want you to understand where the killer, why is it an issue with the killer, so it's part of the world building. You have to, it's hard. You have to create the story for the hero, the heroine, the villain, and then you have to make sure it meshes together. The guy's a sicko. And this is something a sicko would think about. I'm sorry if it, you can't see that, but eventually you'll understand. What do you do for marketing? How do you market your books? Because now, as a self-publisher, it's a part of the job. Yeah.
So I have my newsletter, and so marketing is something I'm very hit or miss with. Didn't do anything for a long time. So
right.
Some of the things that I have found effective are newsletters, newsletter swaps, in particular, where if you have a sale running or something, you can swap with other people, just to get a mention in there, or a new release or something. You can get a mention in each other's newsletters, which is super helpful. I find that to be the most effective, cost-effective thing to do.
Yeah.
And the other things that I have done are participate in a couple of anthologies.
Okay.
So the Hooked on Reader Society did an anthology last year. And we actually, hold on one second.
Okay.
A little dusty, I'm sorry. So we did this.
Wow.
On the 12th night.
Nice.
So it was just the 7 of us, and we all had a, it was all set around a house party with the same, with 7 stories set around the same set of characters.
Oh, wow.
It was so much fun.
That is cool.
So that one actually, we ended up getting we were a finalist in the Roan Awards in the anthology division. So we didn't win, so it goes. We won an award for the cover design. And so that kind of marketing and putting that out there. And then when the rights reverted for the novella that I had submitted, then I could publish it separately, which I did last August, I think. And then I've also recently done a book bub. And those can be an extremely expensive mistake if they don't turn out, but this one turned out very well. I was very happy.
Oh, good.
My Lord hit #1 on Amazon. And so I'm still kind of riding that tail.
Good.
And that felt really good because I've hit #1 on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Apple a couple of times with anthologies like that. I'm also part of another anthology called Romancing the Past, where it's available through March of 2022. So it's 10 authors that just put in a book. I have The Lost Lord in there. And it's just to get a sampling of different authors and try it out.
Okay. And how many books have you published so far?
Let's count. I have 4, 2, 3, 9, I think, under this name.
Yeah, and you have one called, and I know I'm not, because I wasn't prepared to ask about this one, but this The Wicked Widow, but I don't know the whole title of the book.
Wicked Widow.
Hold on, because I think it's in your bio.
Oh yes, I never finished it.
Oh, okay. To Win a Wicked Widow. That sounds interesting.
I know. It was in 2018, and I never finished that manuscript. But I did enter the beginning into that contest, and I finaled in it.
Oh wow!
But I haven't actually entered any contests since then. So
Yeah, yeah. So have you ever heard of the Marketing for Romance Writers organization, MFRW?
I feel like somebody's mentioned it to me before, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay, her name is KL Allen, I believe, and I'm gonna invite her so she can talk about that. She's the founder, I think. I belong to it. But I haven't done much with it. But I know that it's either the first or second Wednesday of the month they do a tweet, and so all the authors put in a Twitter link to their book. And then everybody has to go in and you tweet all of their books, all the books you only list one book. And so you tweet every book to your people and they do the same for you. And, so if there's 30 authors, they all do the same thing for each other.
Wow.
So yeah, you may want to check them out, but I'm hoping to see if she would do an interview so she can talk about her group and how it helps romance authors. Yeah, and they seem to know a lot, and they email each other a lot about things like taxes and stuff like that. So you may want to check them out. So what is your current work in progress? Do you have anything that you're currently working on?
Yes, I have several things.
Yep.
So I have during the pandemic I branched out and so I have a three and a half book contemporary romance series that I published before the historical stuff. It's a long story. But anyway, I decided to start trying to play with that again, but I am submitting to agents and
oh, wow, cool.
See what happens with that.
Okay.
If nothing, then eventually I will probably self-publish it under a different pen name. That's why I keep talking about, under this pen name, because I have if I had known what I was doing in the beginning, I would have started two separate pen names at the outset to have contemporary and historical separate, because they're very different readerships. And so it's hard to target them. And I know some authors have managed to do it. And I think authors, especially early in their career, tend to experiment a little bit with genres. So that is one mistake that I guess if I could go back and change something, that's what I would go back and change.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, but that's why I'm kind of taking that as a different route. And the current work in progress, as I mentioned, is this huge mega series. I mean, to me, it's a huge mega series. I have never tried to write anything this big and intricate, and it's really stymied me in a lot of ways. It's based on the do you know the movie? It's like an old MGM, old Hollywood movie from the 50s, I think, called Seven Brides for Seven
Brothers. It's a musical. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rodgers and Hammerstein. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a movie buff.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of readers are.
Yeah.
And I just thought that would be a very fun way to kind of do, when we did that anthology, to have a single setting and a single location, but have it, 7 different stories. So I'm trying to complete the intro novella and have all of the other 7 books plotted out and
awesome.
Push the free novella, or the free novel. I don't know how long it'll be in the end. But hopefully I'm trying to get that out before March. So
wow.
And then the rest of them starting later this year.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's what's next for you. That's what's next for Carrie Lomax. Yeah.
In theory, if I can pull it off.
You can pull it off. Let's see. So I know you're doing self-publishing. Do you want to stay in self-publishing, or do you wish to go into traditional publishing?
So ever since I fell out of that contract, so I did query for the Wild Lord for quite a while, and I did not get an agent. I didn't get representation at any point. And I wasn't going to self-publish until my book fell out of contract with a small publisher for,
right.
No hard feelings or anything like that. It just didn't work out. So the rights came back to me, and I was like, I just don't have the energy and the patience to do this again. By then I had several books in the series kind of ready to go. I'd been playing around with this, this contemporary thing. And so I just went for it, and I'm glad I did. But again, like I said, I made mistakes at the outset. It's very easy. And I wish I had done some things differently. And that's kind of the appeal to wanting to try and reboot and maybe take things in a slightly different direction. And, you approach things with new knowledge. So now I have more knowledge of the industry, and hopefully I'll find more success in it.
Yeah. It's just keep doing it. That's the thing, stay on track.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was Zoe York who said, I listened to a couple of podcasts, and she was on Day Drinking with Authors this week. And I think she said something to the effect of, in this industry, you have to ride the ups and you ride the downs, and you have to embrace the downs because that sets you up for the next up.
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. And I thought that was really smart, because
that is a good thought.
Yeah, because there's a lot of downs in this industry.
Yes,
and
there is.
so you really have to enjoy the times when you're up. Like for me, hitting the #1 spot in my category and it was Regency Historical. It's not like I put it in some weird category, but it was, for that day, it was
awesome.
It was #1. So that to me was a big, and I did it on my own without other support.
That's fantastic.
That was a big accomplishment.
Yes, it is big. Yeah. Proud of yourself.
I am.
Yeah.
But now I have to think about what's next.
So you got to figure out what you're going to do next. Let's see. I think. Have you? I did ask you if you have joined other writing organizations. Has there been any of them that you've benefited anything in terms of your writing?
Yeah, the Regency Academy is part of they're the Beau Monde, split off from RWA. I think they've disaffiliated. I know I don't have to be a member of RWA to be a member of them, because I just renewed in December.
Cool.
So they have wonderful courses, and the period is so it can be a little tricky. Like I said, I do research and I give it my honest best to get it right, and sometimes I take liberties, and sometimes I just get it wrong. And their courses are incredibly helpful. They're very self-directed. So one reason I have not been joining as many organizations is because with 2 children, it's very hard for me to get away.
Oh, yeah.
With Girl Scouts or a parent meeting or tutoring or whatever. And so it's just hard to manage the schedule.
Yeah.
This money and you can't go. Why am I doing it? So one thing that I like about their courses is that they're sort of independently paced. Sometimes there's a video, but there's always downloads that I can come back to later.
Yeah. And this is the Regency writers? No.
I think it was called the Beau Monde. I can't remember if that's actually still their branding.
I think so, because I think I belong to that.
Okay, good.
I think I belong to the Beau Monde, and I think I've done a class or 2 with them as well. So I'll check them out again. But I'm trying to. I have a 3-book series, and I'm finishing number 3, and those are Regency historicals. But now my 4th book is a standalone contemporary romance thriller.
Oh, wow.
So I'm kind of, branching out from the 3, because the 3 book was supposed to be a 7-book series based on the deadly sins. So see, I'm not, you're not crazy for doing the 7, thing about the brides and whatever, but
it's daunting.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, initially it was supposed to be a 7-book series. So now I think I'm going to stop on the 3rd. At the 3rd. So the first one was the Vicar's Deadly Sin, which was greed. The second one was Angel's Lust, which was lust was beauty and ageless, so it was a little bit of a paranormal twist to it. And then the third one is called The Wrath of the Illuminati. So that's also a little bit of maybe aliens kind of thing in the Regency period, but because I want to stay within in those times, they were still trying to discover planets and stuff like that. I do introduce real historical characters, especially in the 3rd one. I have the lady and her brother who, and I don't remember her first name because I'm working on book 4. Caroline, and I. She and her brother discovered Uranus.
Yeah.
And so they thought it was a star initially, but they discovered that it was a planet. So, and they were hired by the British government to do their own, their own research. So this is all true because I researched this. And they also developed a telescope, and I can't remember their last name, but I forgot the point I was going to make. I hate that. Anyway, you try to introduce these real characters into the story. I introduced like the Prince Regent in book 1, and then Lady Ackerman, who he had this huge, I think it's Ackerman. He had this huge crush on, and she was like the only woman that rejected him, And so they go around talking about how he cried because this woman rejected him. So I have her do a cameo in the book. So anyway, you do try to stick to certain things. But yeah, the Beaumont and the classes are very, valuable, I think. And they're reasonable. So I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule, mom, wife, author. And do you have pets?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
I have a Boston Terrier Beagle mix. Who is,
okay, there you go. For mom. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Do you have any advice for newbie writers before we go?
Yeah, keep going, because this is an industry that persistence pays off. And really, if you have like the one hit, upfront success, I think that's very hard to replicate. So, be grateful for those early failures because you will learn a lot. And it's, sometimes those lessons are hard, but we need them. And just be gentle with yourself along the way because it is worth it if you love it.
Wise words. And what about your readers? You got anything to say to your readers? Stay tuned.
I appreciate them so much. And thank you, everyone who reads my books. I am so grateful for all of you. Even when I make you hate my characters, it's okay.
Oh, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. The thing is, like I said, I think the important thing about reading is what you take away from it, what you take away from the story. Romance novels, especially the ones that I've been reading and the ones that I grew up reading, you take away.
Yeah.
And to me, as a reader, you grow from that. And that's what's important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think romance novels are definitely underappreciated in terms of the complexity of character development that we have to do. And I think they are often dismissed as trashy because there is sex in them. But actually, when I started out, I hated writing sex scenes. I was like, oh man, this is really hard. And it is hard because, you end up with wandering body parts. They've got 3 hands. It is difficult and it's hard to read that.
Right.
I can fix it. But they've actually become my favorite thing to write because there is nothing else happening except emotional and physical vulnerability. So you have to have exactly what they're bringing into that moment, like from an emotional level. And so anyway, they've become my favorite way to just like, if I can't figure out a scene, I'll just write a sex scene because then you really have to get into what the problem is.
Yes, that's a perfect analysis. You don't watch TV, but I watched the Reacher series on Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. And so with Amazon and HBO, it's, sex. That, Games of Thrones, they just ruined it with the sex. But in Jack Reacher, there is one sex scene with him and the police officer, lead heroine. And the next morning, she says to him, that changes nothing. This, what happened last night changes nothing. So at first I thought, okay, here we go now. Hollywood trying to make the woman strong and blah, 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 blah. And so then in next several scenes, they're being followed by 2 or 3 bad guys. And they they crash. And so they get out of the car. And so he says, you chase some of them that way, and I'll chase some of them this way. But what he does is he gets them all to chase him because he's protecting her.
Yeah.
Okay. So she goes and she runs until she realizes I've been had, you know? So when he ends up killing two of them, and then the third one is going to kill him, she arrives in time and shoots him. And so then he walks over to her, he's like, well, I'm glad. And then she goes, smacks him in the face and says, I told you last night doesn't change anything. And so then he says, but this is what really doesn't make the scene trashy. Because he says to her, when my brother was killed, I lost everybody that I love until I met you. And then I realized I had something in the world. And so,
I was just going to say that action scenes, and sex scenes, there's really no difference. They serve the same narrative purpose. I mean, unless you have like romantic suspense, in which case they're sort of intertwined sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, like they really get at what the characters' vulnerabilities are, and like how they relate to one another, especially under pressure. And the more you can put them under pressure and really crack them. Yeah.
And that to me was, that to me took the scene and then it didn't make that sex scene trashy. It made it to like, wow, okay, I saw another perspective and I kind of understand where he's, it just made it better. And so that's what our romance books are all about, is these characters that are so screwed up, but they share this vulnerable one moment in time where they open up to each other, and then it changes everything. Yeah. And that's what makes it not a trashy novel to me. Okay. So it was.
My heat meter broke like in 2010. So
you did a what?
My heat meter broke in like 2010 or something. So
no, it was
right.
Yeah, no, it was very good, very well done. And I wish you a lot of success, and I can't wait to read your next book, and hopefully you keep them coming. Don't stop. I know it's a struggle, but keep it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, keep it up. And thank you again so much for being here with us, and I'll stay in touch with you about the next steps. Thank you again for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed our visit with Carrie Lomax. For more information on Carrie, please check out the description box below for links to her website and books. In the meantime, keep on reading and writing.